Just left my house, going to Australia.
Welcome to Modern Grand Tour with me, Garland Lowe. After completing the European leg of my round the world journey, we now arrive in the world's largest country, Russia. Riding the full length of the famous Trans-Siberian Railway, we'll couchsurf with locals along the way to get an insider's view of the fascinating Russian culture. Beginning in the western part of this Eurasian country, my new Russian friends and I explore St. Petersburg, Moscow, Vladimir and Suzdal, Nizhny Novgorod, Perm and Yekaterinburg. Then in the eastern part we discover Tobolsk and Tumen, Novosibirsk, Irkutsk and Okhotsk Island, Ulan-Ude, Khabarovsk and finally Vladivostok. In this 6th episode across Russia and the 14th in this Modern Grand Tour series, we'll visit the forests where the last Tsar of Russia was secretly buried, go on a quirky or even QWERTY self-guided walking tour, and of course meet the locals. So let's explore the city of Yekaterinburg.
Yekaterinburg? Cool place. Look at that.
Yekaterinburg is located east of the Ural Mountains, making it geographically my first stop in Asia. Historically Russia's metal-producing city, with its exported materials found in landmarks such as the Statue of Liberty, the Eiffel Tower and the Houses of Parliament. Today, its diversified economy continues to make it one of the most prosperous cities in Russia. Culturally, Yekaterinburg is most famous for being the execution site of the Russian royal family, which was the first place my couchsurfing host Yevgeny and I went to visit.
The church on the blood, and this is the main church of city. It was built due to imperator's family. It was killed.
Indeed, in 1918, Tsar Nicholas II and his family were executed on the spot where the Church on the Blood now stands. Following the 1917 Russian Revolution and the ensuing civil war between Vladimir Lenin's Red Army and the anti-communist White Army, the Tsar and his family were imprisoned by Lenin in faraway Yekaterinburg due to the fear that they would be a rallying point for public support. With the White Army advancing, secret orders were given to execute the family. Taken to the basement, Tsar Nicholas and his wife Alexandra died immediately by gunshot. But as if by miracle, the bullets did not penetrate the children. The executioners then used their bayonets, but this was also unsuccessful, because what they didn't know was that the children were secretly carrying diamonds sewn into their clothes. Finally, with gunshots to the head, Russia's royal family were no more, and the bodies were immediately taken to the forest in the area called Ganina Yama.
This is the place.
Ah.
Groped and looted, the naked bodies of the royal family were thrown into a pit where they were soaked in acid and set on fire to disfigure them beyond recognition. A few days later, an official statement declared that by the order of local leaders, the Tsar had been executed, but the family had been sent to a safe place. It would be 8 years later, in 1926, that the Soviet government would admit that the family were also murdered. There then came a clampdown on any discussion regarding the deaths, including demolishing the house where they were executed to discourage people paying pilgrimage to the Tsar. And it wasn't until the end of the Soviet Union in 1989 that the murders were discussed openly. In 2000, the Russian Orthodox Church made the family saints. The Church on the Blood was built in their memory, as was the Ganina Yama monastery. Today, 100 years after the event, it is still a delicate matter, as the new national narrative of the now saintly Tsar Nicholas II jars with the father of communism, who by varied accounts ordered his death. The worshipping of these opposing figures highlights the complexity in history that Russia faces today.
All the fishy said, running through my head, running through my hair, running through my head.
We then went back to Yevgeny's apartment for some drinks, a sing-song and a discussion about class in Russia.
What are your thoughts on class in Russia?
I can divide in 4 classes. So the 60% is small town villages. It's people who mostly have no high education. 30% is the middle class. It's people who all have a stable job or have a good education. 9% are looking for additional education, looking for some interest in traveling. And 1% it's millionaires, billionaires, oligarchy. My parents were 30%, but they teach me to be like this person. USSR stopped many mines. It was maybe not forbidden, but nobody said it is good that you do something more than another. We were afraid because nobody liked some ambitious people.
So do you feel young people post-USSR have more ambition than old people?
Yes.
This is not enough.
No, it was good.
Yeah, it was good. High five.
The next day, I followed this red line, designed to guide tourists to the city's main sites, which turned out to be quirkier than expected.
Can you guess what it is yet? That might be a yellow submarine. What are they doing here in Yekaterinburg?
In 2009, the Yekaterinburg Beatles fan club self-funded Russia's first monument to the Fab Four. Seemingly strange that a band who never set foot in the country would have a statue, there is in fact a significant link between the two. For it would be the Beatles more than any other act, and some say more than any other event, that would influence young Soviet people into moving away from Soviet mentality. Because with Western music being banned in the USSR, an underground counterculture emerged, with fans forced to smuggle records into and around the country.
That's weird, isn't it? It's like a Michael Jackson tribute. What's that all about?
Not to be outdone, in 2011 the Yekaterinburg Michael Jackson fan club self-funded their own tribute. Somewhat amusingly, I was so astounded by these rather budget Michael Jackson posters that I completely missed the actual monument just 5 metres away. Built in 2005, this keyboard monument, symbolising connection between people around the world, acknowledges the geography of Yekaterinburg on the border between Europe and Asia. Once a year, local IT workers gather around the monument to celebrate System Administrator Appreciation Day, with competitions that include mouse throwing and hard drive powerlifting.
Cool sculpture, eh? Have a little walk and go that way and see what else we find.
What we found after these monuments was the Birdman of Yekaterinburg, who may have been a monument himself. And then after watching this kid play in what I hope is a very shallow river, we then walked towards this distinctive steel dome.
So basically I think this is a circus with quite brutal architecture and I suppose you could argue also quite brutal treatment of animals.
I finished my walk on the banks of the Isset River, where in the distance I could see the Yeltsin Center, a cultural space dedicated to local boy and Russia's first president, Boris Yeltsin. And so on the drive back to the apartment, Yevgeny and I discussed Russia's modern political history.
Some of us like Gorbachev because he has crushed the USSR, but many people say that he's just crushed but not create something. And for this, everybody thanks Yeltsin that he's a creator. Create new Russia. On many big events, he was drunk. In politics, and you drink, you will have even more respect. In our mentality, it means that you're afraid about something if you drink. In terms of government, it means that he's disturbed about his citizens.
Under Medvedev's leadership, did anything interesting happen?
It's a white period of Russia.
Okay.
There's nothing. Everybody understood that need a period without Putin to back Putin. His main purpose is that he's not change something. And just wait when Putin comes back.
He's very strong. I've seen photos of him riding a horse and shooting a bear and...
Yes.
Medvedev never had these photos. Why did he...
He had some kind of photos when he played badminton.
Oh, okay. Badminton is not the same as riding a horse.
Such kind of message. Guys, relax and don't do nothing.
Yeah.
Badminton.
What is Putin's party called again? United Russia. And then the other alternative parties are the Liberal Party and the Communist Party.
But afraid change. We already had many changes, especially my generation. I lived in USSR, I lived in RSFSR, I lived in first Russia that was just founded. I lived already in modern Russia. So and it's each change, of course, it provides some better life, but you always afraid with not lose it. So with these terms, stable situation, it's more preferred.
This is the federal newspaper that provides not gossip or rumours. They publish the laws that have been passed. Very serious paper. I'm pretty sure that if this is the state newspaper, it never criticises the government.
No,
because it is the government newspaper.
Yes, government line.
And this paper is given out free?
Yes, also.
What is the headline? Can you read?
The title is Britain wants to back on the age of colonial wars.
Britain is out of the age of the colonial wars.
Britain wants back.
I want to be back in the age of colonial wars.
Yeah.
Wow, excellent, okay. Now going back to the article.
Britain wants to outside the military from the activity of European Convention by Human Rights.
So, this is about Britain wanting to not be part of the Human Rights Act.
Main title is License for the Killing.
Is this a literal translation? License to kill.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So this type of headline is, for me, a overreaction to the reason why Britain wants to not be part of this Human Rights Act. But this has been presented as killing.
Main purpose of this article is to show the bad side of it.
Right. So this is also what's really interesting because it's a government paper. It's essentially propaganda for the government. For the people of Britain, we don't have a direct channel of information between the government and the person. It's always filtered by independent reporters. It doesn't have a government TV channel. Does Russia have a government?
We have TV channels where the government have a part of owners.
I think the most interesting thing actually is maybe not even the fact that Russia have this kind of propaganda about Britain, but more the fact that there is in itself a Russian government newspaper.
I also understand how they feel the people talking yesterday, 60, 30...
Right, sure, absolutely, yeah.
For 60%, this is good that we will think. In other countries it's evil.
Yeah, absolutely, I understand.
Our country is the best of the best.
This belongs to the tabloids. This does not belong to the government newspaper. Tabloid style has infiltrated government newspaper, which is kind of scary.
Maybe not to say that Britain is bad, but it's mainly to prove that in other countries it's something bad. Please stay in Russia and live by your current life.
Okay.
Not change.
Okay, I understand.
And so back on the train and reflecting on my last 2 days, I could conclude that Yekaterinburg, with its access to water, green spaces and quirky monuments, was a pleasant city to walk around in. But it's the incredible association to Russia's last Tsar and its first president that makes it a unique city in Russia. Join me in the next episode of Modern Grand Tour, where we'll be in the town of Tobolsk and the city of Tyumen, and where we'll learn about the Siberian Tatars, experience the most breathtaking view on my Russian trip so far, and of course, meet the locals. So until next time, Godspeed.